Have you ever stopped to think that deep down, your body is still living in the past? I'm not talking about retro fashion or nostalgia for childhood. I'm talking about ancient rituals that began thousands of years ago, and strangely enough, still live within you. And the worst part? You repeat many of them without even realizing it. Imagine a tribe lost in time, gathered around a bonfire. The air smells of smoke and fear. A shaman covered in paint and bones dances and chants to ward off spirits. It feels distant, doesn't it? But here's the thing. Your brain still carries traces of those same rituals. Science has shown that many of our automatic behaviors today are direct echoes of ancient practices. From the way we gather to eat to certain gestures we repeat in moments of tension, they may have originated in ceremonies that would give you chills if you saw them up close. And the most curious part, some of these customs weren't just strange, they were horrifying. Imagine cutting yourself to release evil spirits, or keeping pieces of a loved one to stay connected to them. It seems insane, but for them, it was as natural as drinking coffee is for you today. So get ready, in the next few minutes we'll journey through centuries of dark history. We'll dive into bloody rituals, terrifying beliefs and habits that defy logic, but somehow still linger in your modern life. And here's a heads up. After this, you'll start to wonder, how many of these am I still repeating without even noticing? Close your eyes and imagine deep night, dense forest, biting cold. You're in a clearing surrounded by shadows that seem to move. The only thing between you and the unknown is the flickering glow of a bonfire. For our ancestors, fire wasn't just light and warmth, it was protection. But it was also an altar. Around it, entire tribes performed rituals to ward off creatures and summon protective spirits. Repetitive chants, body paintings, frenzied dances, all to ensure the night passed without something or someone emerging from the dark. And guess what? That ancestral fear never left us. Science calls the fear of the dark nyctophobia, but for the human brain, darkness still equals danger. That's why you feel uneasy when all the lights go out, and why you light a candle, a lamp, or even your phone screen to feel safe. Here's a wild one. Even the habit of lighting candles for birthdays, in churches, or at vigils is a direct inheritance of fire's symbolism as protection and a connection to something beyond. In your mind, the flame is still an invisible shield against what cannot be seen. So the next time you flip a light switch when entering a dark room, remember, you're repeating a ritual that began tens of thousands of years ago. Only now, instead of sticks and stones, you've got electricity. Imagine someone, thousands of years ago, approaching a wounded warrior. Instead of just cleaning the wound, they take a sharp stone and cut a little more. It seems cruel, but for many ancient cultures, the act of opening wounds or marking the body had a sacred purpose. It was called blood purification. They believed pain and blood could expel evil spirits, ward off diseases, and even bring luck before battles. These marks weren't random. Lines, circles, tribal patterns, each had a specific meaning. It was as if the skin were a sacred book, and every cut was a sentence written for the spiritual world, and more. In some places, these incisions were accompanied by dances and chants, turning pain into a collective spectacle. Now here's the shock. This ancestral impulse hasn't disappeared. Today, it disguises itself in socially acceptable forms: tattoos, piercings, artistic scarification. Sure, now you choose designs for aesthetics or personal expression, but the urge to mark the body as a rite of transformation still comes from that same ancient instinct. Even the simple act of piercing a baby's ear for an earring has deep roots. For some cultures, it was a way to open spiritual pathways or protect against negative energies. So the next time you admire a tattoo or feel the sting of a piercing needle, remember, you might be reliving a ritual that began long before you existed, and that was once part of ceremonies far bloodier than you can imagine. Picture a bountiful table, everyone gathered, talking loudly, laughing and sharing food. It seems like a simple family lunch, right? But for many ancient peoples, eating together was much more than socializing. It was a ritual of protection and unity. In antiquity, sharing food carried immense spiritual weight. Sitting around a feast meant sealing alliances, ensuring spirits of hunger stayed away. and even invoking prosperity. In some cultures, before each meal, pieces of food were offered to the gods or the dead, literally left on the ground, in the fire, or on makeshift altars. It was like paying a toll to the invisible world so everyone could eat in peace. The most curious part, we still do this in a way. When we toast before drinking, we're repeating a gesture that was once a liquid offering to the gods. When we say bon appétit or hold a moment of silence before a special meal, we're echoing prayers made thousands of years ago. And there's more. The habit of saving a piece for the guest also has roots in tribal customs. It was a way to show abundance and ensure the entire community was protected and well fed, even those not present. In other words, even without stone altars or offerings to forgotten deities, every toast and shared meal still carries the DNA of rituals that shaped how we connect with others. Imagine a small village thousands of years ago. Someone dies. The entire village stops. It's not just mourning, it's a dangerous moment. They believed the spirit of the deceased could get trapped between the world of the living and the dead, bringing bad luck or illness to everyone. The solution? A ritual we now call ancestor worship, but in practice, it could be quite macabre. In some cultures, the body wasn't buried right away. Bones were kept at home, sometimes displayed on family altars. Some peoples drank from skulls as a symbol of inherited strength, while others slept near remains to protect the deceased's soul. The goal was clear: maintain the bond, control the spirit, and ensure it didn't become an enemy. As strange as it sounds, we still echo these habits, keeping photos of loved ones, lighting candles on special dates, visiting graves, all stem from the same ancestral need to keep the dead present, to connect with them even symbolically. Even the habit of bringing flowers to a cemetery has ancient roots. In the past, their fragrance masked the smell of decomposition, while also pleasing the spirit, like a scented offering. The next time you light a candle or pause at a gravestone, remember, your gesture is a polished, subtle version of rituals that once involved bones, fire, and entire nights spent speaking to the dead. Close your eyes and imagine living in a world without medicine, police, or any technology to protect you. If something bad happened, the only defense was believing that invisible forces could be controlled. That's how protective rituals, many of them bizarre, came to be, and somehow they still survive today. In many ancient cultures, amulets were essential. They could be animal teeth, carved stones, bits of metal, or even small pouches filled with herbs and bones. The principle was simple. Carrying something magical would ward off disease, enemies, and spirits. But it wasn't always an object. Some believed specific gestures like spitting 3 times on the ground or knocking on wood created a barrier against bad luck. And guess what? That hasn't stayed in the past. Who hasn't knocked on wood to ward off a bad omen, or worn a wristband, a lucky pendant, or even carried a keychain that supposedly protects? The most fascinating part is that science explains some of this. Our brains crave a sense of control, even when we have none. Repeating a gesture or carrying an object provides a feeling of safety, just as our ancestors felt when they tied boar teeth around their necks. The next time you avoid walking under a ladder or slip a 4-leaf clover into your wallet, remember, you're echoing practices thousands of years old that were once taken as seriously as a contract with the gods. Imagine being sick thousands of years ago, with no pharmacy, no doctor, no ready-made medicine to ease the pain. What was left? Turning to healing rituals, some of which feel strangely familiar even today. In many cultures, the idea was to expel the illness from the body. Shamans and healers used chants, herbal smoke, and even splashes of cold water to wash away the evil. In other places, it was believed that the touch of hot stones or pressure on specific points of the body could unblock vital energy. Here's the curious part. Many of these practices still exist, just with modern names. Herbal baths, massages, aromatherapy, acupressure, all have roots in the same rituals that blended belief, with attempts at physical treatment. Even the old recipe of chicken soup to cure a cold carries this legacy. It wasn't just about the food, it was a symbolic act of restoring strength, something that in the ancient mindset held as much spiritual weight as nutritional value. Another example is the use of health amulets. In the past, Necklaces with teeth, shells, or seeds were given to children to ward off illnesses. Today, you see something similar when someone wears amber necklaces to ease teething pain, or bracelets with magnets to balance energy. Deep down, it's the same human brain seeking comfort and control over something unpredictable. The difference is that while a healer once blew herbal smoke over you, today you pay for a spa session. Think about how sleep has always been a mystery to humanity. In total darkness, the body shuts down, the mind wanders, and upon waking it brings images and sensations no one can fully explain. For ancient peoples, this wasn't just rest. It was a gateway to another world. In many cultures, sleep was seen as connecting with spirits or receiving divine messages. To protect this nightly journey, rituals were performed before bed. This could involve chanting a prayer, scattering herbs around the room, placing sacred objects by the bedside, or even painting symbols on the skin. The goal was to ensure good dreams and avoid nightmares, which, for them, were spiritual attacks. And guess what? We still do this, just more subtly. Many have a right side to sleep on, arrange their bed in a specific way, keep a glass of water by the nightstand, or leave a lamp on. Even the famous dream catcher, now a decorative item, comes directly from an indigenous belief that a magical web could trap nightmares. Interestingly, modern science shows that these habits create a sense of security, helping the brain relax. At its core, it's the same logic that drove the ancients. Entering sleep with the assurance that nothing bad will happen while you're vulnerable. So when you fluff your pillow 3 times before closing your eyes or leave a lamp on, know this: you're repeating a ritual as old as the first torchlit huts. Since the earliest human groups, certain moments in life were considered so significant that they required special rituals. The transition from childhood to adulthood, marriage, the birth of a child, all were marked with ceremonies full of symbolism and often pain. In many cultures, the rite of passage to adulthood involved extreme physical trials, fasting for days, isolation in the forest, tattoos or scars made by hand, and even dangerous hunts. The goal was clear: to prove the person was ready to take on responsibilities within the group. Only after this ritual were they recognized as one of the adults. Today, we don't endure these brutal trials, but the instinct to mark these transitions remains. Debutante parties, graduations, weddings, even birthday celebrations, all are ways of announcing to the community, something has changed in my life. The cake, the special outfit, the chosen music, the speeches, every detail has a symbolic role, even if we don't notice it. And there's more. The act of gathering people to witness this moment is almost identical to what was done thousands of years ago. The difference is that, instead of tattoos with sharp bones or dangerous hunts, we now celebrate with photos, gifts, and social media posts. In other words, no matter how modern we seem, we still feel the need to turn life changes into public rituals, and that's pure cultural DNA inherited from our ancestors. Imagine living in a time when illnesses were blamed on evil spirits clinging to the body. In many ancient cultures, physical dirt and spiritual dirt were seen as nearly the same thing, and only specific cleansing rituals could remove both. These rituals went far beyond simply washing. There were baths in sacred rivers, immersions in cold water before sunrise, scrubs with ashes or sand, and even the use of herbal smoke to purify the body. In some cultures, cleansing was mandatory before participating in any ceremony, as if it were a password to connect with the sacred. The most curious part: even in our modern world, we echo this habit. Taking a shower before an important meeting, washing hands repeatedly before eating, or even the urge to tidy the house when something new is about to happen, all carry traces of this idea of purification. Even practices like washing fruits and vegetables more thoroughly than necessary, or burning incense to cleanse the environment, are direct descendants of these customs. It's not just hygiene, it's a way to feel renewed, to mark a fresh start, even if we're not consciously thinking about it. So the next time you take an extra long shower before an interview or clean the house before guests arrive, know that you're repeating, in a modern way, a ritual as old as the very notion of community. If you pay attention, you'll notice your day is full of small gestures inherited from a past far darker than it seems. Turning on a light, toasting, wearing a special outfit, keeping photos, arranging the bed in a specific way. All are echoes of rituals that, at some point in history, involved fear, blood, superstition, and the belief that the invisible world needed to be kept under control. And this tells us something fascinating. No matter how much technology has changed everything around us, the human brain is still, in large part, the same as it was tens of thousands of years ago. It continues to seek security, meaning and connection. Only now we've swapped bones, stones and fire for smartphones, scented candles and electricity. It's incredible to think about, but when you blow out birthday candles, you're following the logic of a ritual once used to seek protection from the gods. When you avoid walking under a ladder, you're echoing gestures that, in the past, could determine who lived or died in a village. In the end, these habits are like invisible fossils, preserved in our routines without us noticing. We think we're acting by choice, but in reality, we carry in our bodies and minds an entire museum of ancestral traditions. So tell me, which of these rituals do you realize you still practice? Leave your comment below, like the video, and subscribe to the channel to discover more stories that show how the past continues to live within you.